Without an objective moral authority, no society can consistently define what is right and wrong, and history has consistently shown where that has led.
The question tonight is not whether Christian values are good, but how they will be implemented.
Britain can no longer stand on the rickety ways of secular ethics, which seem to change like the weather and to whatever is popular or that which a new small group of people is demanding.
With all the political turmoil and violent revolutions in our world currently, do we really think a mass uprising of religious ideas would be so peaceful?
The question is not whether people can be moral about Christianity, the question is whether a society can sustain morality without it.
If we do not think this through, if we do not think how we can minimise the risk of hurting others and ourselves and truly follow Christian values, we're going to make it so much worse.
Let then this nation awake and abide in Christ once again.
Those in favour of the motion, Britain should follow Christian values, would you please raise your hand?
George, a week ago today we were in here arguing a really fun subject. We argued, should Britain follow Christian values? And you argued for, from a sort of perspective that one of the reasons Britain's declining is because we've abandoned those values. Mm-hmm. And I argued against, from actually a Christian perspective, that we've got to be careful that in trying to put our views forward again, we must be careful not to get dogmatic or oppressive in that. You actually picked the topic for the conversation. Why was that topic important to you to be discussed?
One of my great interests out of many is the intersectionality of politics and Christianity, and how that Christians can carry themselves in politics and how politics often affects Christians or Christianity. So it was quite natural to me as well, especially considering recent events in Britain at the time. I mean, we planned this back in November, I think, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it would have been just before Christmas.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
been a while coming.
It's been a while coming, and there was a lot going on in the media at the time, not just in Britain actually, but in other countries as well, especially European ones, about the state of Christianity, whether it needs to have a comeback. Will this fix the problems that our nation's facing, or our people are facing? So yeah, no, it came quite naturally in that regard.
Yeah, you were straight on it. We were trying to find a subject. We were actually trying to find a subject we disagreed on, because we actually agree on quite a bit.
Yeah.
But you were straight on that. But I immediately thought of my perspective on it, which was that we've got to be very careful how we do it, because you don't want to, in trying to, how do I say this, in defeating your enemies, becoming them.
Exactly.
You know, we're all very concerned about the division and the dogma and the conflict that's brewing in the West, and the last thing you want to do is just have that all over again, but in the form of Christianity.
Exactly, yeah.
So in that I was trying to wrestle with how can we revive ourselves without going down that path. And what I realised is that we've not actually thought that through very much. And that was my argument, was that although it would be nice if Christianity would return, we haven't even begun to discuss how that can be done effectively. I didn't win, but
well, you put yourself across very well.
It was good fun to figure out if I could ride that, because it was a nuanced argument, and it was, at times I was wondering if I was oversimplifying it or losing that thread. But it was actually quite difficult to write it because it's not obviously an argument to not do it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, all right, well, we'll take that into account as we move forward.
Yeah.
I mean, my argument was, look before you leap, let's figure it out now.
Mm-hmm.
But the debate, it was quite a lot of fun, actually. I was quite nervous before it began. I think because I wasn't very talkative before, but I wasn't trying to like build you up as an enemy in my head. I know some boxers do that. They have to hate their opponent before fighting.
Yeah, it makes them stronger.
I was just terrified. I was just really, really nervous to do it. But you walked in, you were ready to go.
Yeah, well, I've debated a lot before, and this is the first time I've actually done it in person in an Oxford style.
Right.
A lot of my previous debates have been kind of online, informal, where it's just kind of two people going constantly at each other. But what I found so fascinating about the points you raised was I have, in all the months and years that I have debated this subject, I have not once heard it from the position of, okay, but how are we actually going to get there and how are we going to actually do it? Because every time it goes, right, I think Britain should follow Christian values, it usually goes into, oh, but Christians believe this, and they also believe that, and I don't like that. Yeah. And then what end up happening is you're not going down the route you went down. You're going down, okay, well, this is why I think this is good and why we should implement it. Yeah. You kind of, the usual points are brought up, like marriage, abortion, there's a couple others. But the route of implementation, I've not heard it once. And every debate I have watched on the subject, it's never about implementation. So I was very taken aback and pleasantly surprised by your angle. And it initially, when I first heard your angle, I was like, this isn't what I thought he was going to say. Right. And it wasn't that I underestimated you. I think I knew you was going to do well, but I never anticipated that angle. No. I never anticipated it. I had a sheet of rebuttals, like common rebuttals, right? I had about 4 or 5 bullet points. You touched one of those. And I was like, that's not going to work. But it was a brilliant debate. And I think you should give yourself more credit as well, because I think this is the first time you've done it. Yeah, well, wasn't it? Yeah. And you came across so strong, very powerful. You believed what you believed, even though you was doing it from a Socratic sort of position. Yeah. And honestly, there were points in that debate, I openly admit, my back was up against the wall. Yeah, well, that's my dad said the same thing on the ride home. He said I could tell you believed what you were saying. Yeah. And it's because it was, as you said, it wasn't, like you said, it's always a conversation about values, of which values would be better. Yeah. I'm in complete agreement with you. I think Christian values would be better overall, in both the culture and the government of this country, with, of course, the separation of church and state. But it's a question of, if we don't implement them correctly, we're just going to make it so much worse. And we're just going to, one of the points I didn't get to was, it will again hurt the reputation of the church. We have, to our outsiders, we have so many sins against us that people can use either because they genuinely believe us to be immoral, or as a simple way to shut us down. Yeah. It's like, you believe X, or exactly. Well, it's like, well, you've got all the people attacking children in your church, and you're oppressing women and gays, and all these things that can be used against us. But and that was the debate I thought I was going to have.
Right, and the last thing that I wanted to do was add another sin onto the church, which is we all want to rule the world.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that was a good part. I mean, I'm glad to know that it went in a different direction. But that's because I wasn't coming from a secular or atheist or a revolutionary perspective. It was kind of anti that. Yeah. But you mentioned you've done debates before. You're part of a website. Why don't you tell me about that and tell me about the debates you do there?
Yeah, so I'm I'm an admin on the IM-BEGGAR community. We're a Christian.
What was that?
The IM-BEGGAR community.
IM-BEGGAR.
It's the head of it is a very, very well-known YouTuber who does education videos on the faith. Yeah. And I help maintain and manage and run the server, but kind of a part of the little side thing I do is I engage with debate with people there. And I have all sorts of people. I mean, I have people who come in who are complete atheists, agnostics, Christians who kind of believe a more progressive version, or maybe Christians who believe an ultra conservative version. And I have these debates, not every day, but I usually chip into them every now and then maybe every weekend or so I'll proper go in on one and kind of go from there.
Yeah, and it's I've checked it out. It's a lovely website, and the videos he does are different than mine because they're all animated. Yeah, which I think makes them a bit more universal, and also having the visuals to aid his rhetoric also helps, because a lot of this stuff can be complicated when you get into the weeds of it. Of course. And he has a diagram of some kind, and it just helps break it down a lot more, and quite successful. And you moderate that. Yeah. And you said you've done some debates. It's like a chat room, isn't it? So is it typing out?
Well, we have 2 systems. So there's one where you can just simply type it out, and they're usually a bit messy because you'll be replying to one point, and then someone's typing so fast, you've got 6 more points to add to that, and it's just sort of going constantly. But the one I sort of enjoy doing a bit more is we do it we call it voice channels or voice streams, and that's basically like you're on a call with someone, and other people can join in. They can sit there and listen, or they can add their 2 cents. But yeah, no, I love it. It's great fun.
What did you get from doing it in person? Was it a different skill set?
Yeah, it definitely is. You definitely have to have more people skills, I think. I think kind of going into the debate, I kind of knew that I was like, a lot of the room's going to be on my side, benefits of doing it in a church. I didn't think that through. But there's going to be people in there I need to win over, and there's the mate you brought along, very nice man, by the way, I quite enjoyed speaking to him, and Matt, was it as well?
There was. Do you mean who voted against you?
Yeah.
I think it was Mike.
Mike, that was it,
Yeah.
not Matt. But Mike, so I was like, okay, well, these are the people I'm going to win over, or need to win over. So when you're doing that, when you're speaking, you're making these points. You're like, right, I'll make eye contact to that person, and it'll resonate with them.
Right.
There was a point where Brian made a good point about establishing a good country for our children and our grandchildren, and I was like, funny, because I've got about that in my closing statement about laying foundations for our children. And as I said that, I looked at him, and he looked at me directly in the eye, and I think he caught on to that.
Of course.
But there is a lot more, and you have to manage how more you speak, how you come across. You have to be a bit more articulate, I find.
Yeah.
But I like it because it feels richer. It feels more organic.
Yeah.
You kind of picture yourself as it has been done throughout the entirety of the ages. You know, and it's great.
Yeah, I didn't have to worry about whose eyes I met because everyone disagreed with me. So I could look wherever I wanted. It was perfectly fine.
It's like up at the ceiling.
It was quite funny because I mean that's why I wanted to do it, was the challenge of, can I convince a room full of Christians not to follow Christian values in Britain?
Yeah.
That's kind of a macabre, little mischievous part of me. But it was. I got a few people over. But I don't think I made the argument well enough. I mean, although I have to say there was one person, I won't name who it was, I was outside getting some fresh air just before we started, because I was also quite nervous. And this guy came up, and he could, because I was in the blazer and tie at this point, and he said, "Oh, are you part of a debate?" I said, "Oh yeah, I'm the guy that's arguing against." And he went, "Oh, you're going to lose, aren't you?"
And the last thing you needed to hear then.
I was a slightly sarcastic back, and I said, "Well, it depends how open everyone's minds are, doesn't it?"
Yeah. Well, that is true. That is true for that.
Yeah, and he went in, and but he asked some good questions. But I knew that I wasn't going to win. For me, the goal was, can I lose by less of a majority than I started with?
But I think you've done that, because there was one person. I forget the original score. I think it was 8-2, 8 to 3, 8-3, and then it
for
was
you.
6-4,
6-4, and there was an abstention.
An abstention,
which I count as a win.
Well, you know what? I was thinking back on that as well in preparation for this conversation, and I think that's not only a testament to you, but also me and the whole debate in general. Because if you can provide such good arguments that someone's like, "Oh my, I don't know."
Yeah.
Like that says quite a lot, especially in a room full of Christians, and it was a Christian man who said that.
Yeah.
So that, if I was you, I'd walk away from that grinning, because that is quite the achievement.
And we both said before it started, we'll know if it's a good debate if the Q&A is lively, which it was.
Towards the end it was, yes.
Yeah, it took a few minutes to take off, but then people were into it, and people were coming out with some very interesting points, actually. I thought I was going to be like in a Bruce Lee movie fighting off 20 people, because I thought everyone's going to be coming at me. Most of my rebuttals planned were for the Q&A. But
really?
luckily there were a few questions thrown at you as well. There was one person asked you about the religious elements of prison populations. He made the point that if Christianity would make people more moral, how come everyone in prison is Christian? There was the point made of how Christianity is going in a certain direction in the United States, which we might not want here. And there was another question, of the Bible being able to be interpreted however it wanted to be by whoever wants to make it work for them. So you had a few questions thrown at you. How have you, I imagine in the days afterwards you thought more about them?
You know what, no word of a lie. I went to bed that night and there was one question, I forgot what it was, and I knew I'd answered it poorly.
Oh, yeah.
And I was lying in bed and I woke and I sort of like, the idea came to my head of how to answer it, and I was like, oh my days. Like, why didn't that come to me then?
Yeah.
But I really wish we had a second round of rebuttals. Like, I rebutted, you rebutted, and then kind of rinse, repeat again. Because there were so many points you made, I was like, I really want to get on that. If I press that would be like very like juicy, so to speak. But the questions I think were brilliant. I mean, it's so easy, and people can throw really not pedantic questions, but really like not deep questions like, oh, but what about this? And it's like there was never a what about question. It was very like very deep, consistent, and stuff you actually had to think about.
Yeah.
But the questions put by the crowd are excellent. I would generally, some of them had me really like scratching the top of my head.
Yeah, well, I had one guy ask me because it was, I was my job was to oppose you and your position. And I had one guy ask me basically why I was being so negative. Like, you're criticizing him, but what have you got as an alternative? Which I think is a fair point.
Yeah.
Is if you're going to criticize something, you have to offer an alternative. You have to offer a better way forward, which is what part of my conclusion was dedicated to. But it was a smaller part of it. If I could go again,
You probably emphasise it.
I would emphasize the alternative from like the opening onwards, and I would offer a different narrative rather than cram it all to the end. Take a lot more time to say, let's go in this direction, and maybe spend a bit rather than just saying this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong.
Yeah, there was one person there who made, instead of appealing to the Bible, why don't we appeal to fairness and welfare?
Yeah,
And I've heard that question quite a lot, and it's usually said differently. Like, why don't we appeal to kindness and all these sorts of things? And the issue is, these things, in my mind, these things change over the years. Like, it was only in the 1940s we thought giving someone a lobotomy was moral and a kindful act.
Yeah.
And what's to say that there's something we're doing today that we should deem kind, which won't be deemed kind in the future? And we have no way of predicting that.
Yeah.
You know? And looking back, if someone had a copy of our debate and someone 100 years in the future might look back at us in like the same way, so I might look back at like Enoch Powell and go, what a bunch of bigots. There's just no way we can predict these things. They change.
Yeah,
you know?
they do change.
But you made the point of that, yes, whilst the Bible doesn't change, interpretations do. Now, there was another response I had to that, and I think it will have a lot of my Catholic friends smiling, is that we need someone to say what these interpretations are and keep them in line.
Yeah.
And then that would push away that problem.
Yeah.
But then how do you do that?
Yeah, well, the Catholics have that, don't they? And the Catholics have had a lot of people fleeing to them in recent years because they offer an alternative.
Especially amongst Gen Z.
Yeah. So there is something to be said for that. I mean, one of the reasons I am part of the Church of England is because I do disagree with that, but it's certainly a point. That's actually something worth pointing out, is you are of a different church, because St. Mary's, where we filmed the debate and where we are now, Anglo-Catholic church. Yeah. But you go somewhere else. What's the denomination of that church?
Very Anglo-Catholic.
Oh, really?
Very Anglo-Catholic, yeah. Priest believes in transubstantiation.
Okay.
Generally some more like closer to the mark. I'm not sure, I actually need to ask him about it. I'm not sure how many of the Marian doctrines he believes in. I believe in a few of them.
Sure.
But very traditional liturgy. We have a lot of, in our kind of liturgy, we have a lot of the Catholic stuff put in there, like the Gloria, and there's a handful of other prayers in there as well. So we have those, but that's generally like the sort of the denominational thing. It's very important to me and the priest, these sort of things, because we think there's truth in these things. But to I think a lot of the rest of the congregation, I don't think they really much notice it. I think it's very much as a part of the thing for them.
No, I think most people, it's just a vibe, isn't it? Really?
Exactly, yeah.
One of the reasons I like St. Mary's is because of the lack of specificity. I actually find that I can live in that. There was a time in this church only a few years ago where there was a Book of Common Prayer service in the morning, so proper Anglican. Yeah. And then a rosary service in the evening, which is of course a Catholic thing. And I loved that.
That's something else I should say. I pray a rosary every now and then.
Yeah, well, I like the broad church appeal of that. I also appreciate that all churches have their own flavour, and then you can go to which one suits you.
Yeah, exactly.
But the question of one person to interpret the text is something I guess I'd have to think more on. How would you have brought that up in the debate then? If we'd have had another round of rebuttals, would you have said that the Anglican Church should have a Pope-esque figure?
Not a Pope-esque figure, so to speak, but more like the Archbishop would go, no, this is actually what this means.
Right, okay.
Because I think a lot of Archbishops prior, I can't speak too much on Sarah Mawali because she's very new, but Justin Welby, for example, you could say to him, Archbishop, what does this mean? And he goes, well, it could mean this, it could mean that, it could mean this. And it's like, you haven't really answered my question.
Yeah, pick a lane.
Like, pick a lane. Right. Like, what does this mean to us? And I think that is sort of a unique symptom of Anglicanism, is that because there's that via media, that middle way between Reformed and Catholic, is you naturally have this spectrum where people differently sit on it, and it's quite hard to say. Yeah. But there's also beauty in that. Because you get mixtures of both.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I would say, I've got to say this in a polite way, but like there are other denominations, if you want more clarity, you can go there. Exactly. I've had friends that have gone, for example, Roman Catholic, because of the clarity. I remember I
imagine it quite refreshing in some ways for them.
Well, for them, I imagine, yes. I mean, I remember when they changed, I said to a priest friend of mine, I said, I don't get that. Like, to me, being in the Roman Catholic Church just feels like you'd be getting told what to do all the time. And the priest said that's what they want. That's certain people like that.
It's the authority.
Yeah, and I remember I watched an interview with Shia LaBeouf recently, an actor who's had his own religious journey. And
He was in the Padre Pio movie. That's what got him, wasn't it?
yeah,
That's what made him
the
convert.
Padre Pio film. Yeah, and he recently said that he liked Catholicism because he liked the routine. He liked being told to get up at this time and go here. And if you've got no structure in your life whatsoever,
It's perfect.
I can imagine that can be the lifeline to save you and pull you back up again and give you a routine, even if it's a spiritual one.
Yeah.
I guess for me, I would feel constricted by that.
Yeah.
And to me, I like the soppiness and the broad church elements of, and also like, I'm not quite sure lots of other churches would allow us to walk in and do a debate here, and you know, that's quite a brave thing for a church to allow to happen under its roof, to have that argument.
Especially people coming in with contrarian views.
Yeah, and also and I mean a slightly atheist element to the discussion on paper. You know, me coming in with the position I had, before you heard it, it could have sounded quite anti-Christian.
Yeah, exactly. If you handed someone just the title of your script, they'd kind of go, oh, what's this? This sounds very Christian. Get out of my church.
Yeah.
They didn't. It's nice. It's like that. And I think in some ways that's good, but I also think in some ways it can be a bit intoxicating in that it kind of lets in too much.
Oh yeah, you can't keep it. Like, who is there to say what can't come in? And also, if you stand for everything, you stand for nothing.
Exactly.
Well.
You eventually fall by the things you tolerate.
I mean, and I try and write from time to time, and one of the things in writing, you have to know exactly what your theme is in your movie, otherwise it won't have any clarity.
Yeah, it's no direction.
Yeah, exactly. So if you don't have direction, and that's the same for a business, if they don't have a specific marketing campaign. Like, I think the reason why the church can't market to people at the moment is because you have to be specific in who you want, and therefore you have to be specific who you don't want.
Yeah.
Could you imagine trying to make an advert for the Church of England today and get that past the board of directors? Like, or let's aim at young people. Oh, but then we'd be excluding the old. And it's like, well, you have to prioritise at some point.
Yeah,
so it's kind of these two extremes, and you've got to find that.
You've got to find that middle point. It's funny, isn't it? Because I think every attempt to sort of make the church appeal to younger people sort of backfired. Like, every single church has gone, right, how are we going to appeal to the younger generation? I mean, Catholics had Vatican II, and it's like, right, we're going to get rid of the traditional Latin Mass. And that went completely up in fire. And now more people want to attend the Latin Mass, and they want the Novus Ordo one. And it's sort of, I don't want to say it's in a very rude way, but I think if you try to appeal to the younger generation too much, you're going to lose that tradition that we've held for thousands of hundreds of years. You're going to replace the altar with guitars. And you really shouldn't be doing that, because that's a significant part of our faith.
Yeah, I remember when I was on my confirmation courses, I was getting confirmed with someone, and all we wanted to ask the priest about was the devil and those passages. And he was like, let's not talk about that and talk about hell. Yeah. And it was because we wanted to engage with the juicier, more controversial parts of the Bible. And he was trying to keep it all child-friendly and
satire.
Yeah, but it actually had the reverse effect of where I went, oh, this is a bit dull. I kind of want to get stuck into it. I think as a young person, you kind of want a bit of a meaty fight.
It's strange, isn't it, how in this generation we seem so persistent on steering away from what is controversial. Like, when I was younger, I used to do a lot of like debate and conversation clubs, and it was really like silly little things like, oh, when you butter your toast and put jam on it, do you put butter first or jam first? It's like, can we actually talk about something that actually matters?
Yeah.
And then they go, oh, it does matter because there's two towns in like Cornwall. I don't care. I want to talk about actual things that are going to, in the world, that are going to impact us, like war, politics, like all these like really, like mind you, we're 15, like we're not, we're old enough to understand these things. It's not an 8-year-old conversation class.
Yeah.
But this steering away of controversial things, I think it's completely ruined us. Because now whenever someone does say something controversial, or does not even something too controversial, but begins talking about it, they're like, oh, that person said this.
Yeah, it's not I disagree with you, let's discuss it. It's how dare you say that.
How dare you be so controversial?
Yeah, and it's a shame because it's really you're thinking aloud. And I've had friends where when I had my political awakening, a bit older than you, sort of in my early 20s, I started thinking things over. And I would just sort of voice things aloud with people close to me and just sort of, oh, I heard this, what do you think of it? And to be met with...
How dare you bring that up?
Yeah, to be met with anger. You're telling people off for thinking aloud.
Do you remember that interview that Jordan Peterson had with that anchor on Channel 5?
Oh yeah.
Where he says to
the interview.
The interview.
Yeah.
The one, the ability to think has to come with the possibility to offend.
Yeah.
And then he pulled up I forget her name, it annoys me, but he pulled her up on it and said, to get to the truth, you've made me feel uncomfortable, and as you should.
Yeah.
And it's, if we're too, and this is going to sound very like Daily Wire-like, but if we're too afraid to offend people and it's going to limit us on our conversations and us deriving a truth, we're cooked.
Yeah, it's. But that was what gave me a little bit of hope, is when we announced we were doing the debate, people were excited for it. People were up for it. People were saying, "Oh, I'm looking forward to that."
Yeah, a lot of the conversations I had building up to it, like the previous night we had with the men's group, I had a ride home with a couple of the fellas, and the whole conversation was, "Oh, it's going to be so good! I can't wait! You and Charlie are going to do so well! It's going to be a great fun night." People, they weren't just looking forward to it; they were ecstatic.
Yeah, I think it was. I think people are starved for that now, where you can, and perhaps there's something to be said for doing more debates, because a bit like in the olden days of courting, you know, there was a place you went to meet the other sex and to make advances, which could probably be quite useful today, I have to say. But
I would know.
Yeah, but having a space where you can walk into knowing that if someone's offended, that's on them. That might be worth bringing back in a way, because like we were in here, I didn't have any worry in the world that you were going to be upset, or that I was going to be upset. And we could get into the nitty-gritty of it, knowing it wasn't personal. Perhaps you can't do that, especially with our British sensibility. I believe it used to be illegal in this country to scold someone, to actually shout at them. I think this is Victorian era. So we've always been a sensitive country. Perhaps there's something to be said for having places where you can go and debate, because it doesn't. The etiquette now is you cannot do that in the workplace. You can't do that in you've told me, in school, or in a social environment. So there might be something to be said for championing the Oxford system, because it allows for people to be heard.
And it's very civil. Very
like, civil.
It's not going to descend, not often does it descend into a shouting match. But to your point of that, we need to bring back more places that, you know, you can hear the other person and you're attacking the idea and not the person. Like these kind of clubs, almost like what we had here. 2 points to that is, we do, but the issue is that they're overtaken by people who are way too easily offended. They're people who, my political ideology is not my identity. If someone comes after me going, rah, you believe this, I'll go, okay, that's fine, because it's not going to affect me, it's attacking the idea of it.
Yeah.
People in a world obsessed with identity and identifying with something, especially something smaller and marginalised, people are going to get offended over their ideas because they just hold on to them too much. Like the notion of, attack the idea, not the person, isn't sufficient for these people anymore, because they are their ideas. It's intrinsically a part of their identity. So you can't do that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think, and I'll sound like a snob when I say this, but I always sound like a snob, so there's no possible way to defend against that. But
yeah.
I don't think everybody has the capability of having these deep conversations.
Why do you think that is?
And well, no, I think it's just the human spirit. I mean,
really?
I've read a little bit about Socrates, and he lived 2,500 years ago. I brought him up in the debate, actually.
I love, you know what, that point
fun.
had me laughing. I thought it was a really funny point.
Yeah, I remember my dad on the way home said, the way you made that point about Socrates, nobody dared question you, because because it was so specific, like no one would want to challenge you on that.
Yeah.
But the thing that was interesting about him is 2,500 years ago, he had a symposium, a place where you could go and debate these ideas. Yeah. And eventually, as Athens declined and people got more self-conscious about the identity of their state, he was eventually put on trial for essentially, holding the wrong views and executed. So
doesn't that sound familiar?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's the human condition that to hear views that you disagree with is painful, and you want to punish that and shut it down for your own reasons.
Well, then maybe it's a skill you have to learn to separate the two. Maybe it's not like a something you're born with. Because what I would say is, like, you'd have you and your idea, and these are so separate apart that if one was attacked, especially the idea, it wouldn't affect you. But I think what you're trying to say is it's actually like this, and we have to learn for it to be like this.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a defeatist perspective, but I think having sort of private rooms where you can go and debate as if it's some sort of sin or something. But I can't see a way to get rid of that timeless element of the masses being angry that certain subjects are being discussed. And that, of course, we have the word heresy for a reason. Our church in its time has banned certain views and certain discussions.
Of course.
And so I think it's a universal that having conversations like this en masse will be unpopular. Although it went down really well here. People were refreshed, and I had someone say to me afterwards that it felt refreshing to have these conversations again. You know, it was like freeing almost.
And seems so civil as well.
Yeah.
I keep going back to that point, but debates nowadays aren't very civil. I mean, what I hate and despise the modern political debate format. Like the Oxford style is, no one does it anymore. Like, no one does it. You get the likes of Piers Morgan. You'll get 4 people on who have the loudest shouting voices and go 3, 2, 1, go. And it's like rah, 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 and they just shout at each other. Like, that's not a debate. That's just a shouting match.
Yeah.
No one's getting their points across. You're just screaming at each other. And then you get the YouTube channels like Jubilee, where it's like 1 Conservative versus 25 Liberals, and they all have to run to the mic at the same time. It's rubbish. You're not having a long debate. You're talking to them for 30 seconds.
No, it's a great game show, but it doesn't get you close to the truth.
No, of course not.
What was great about the style that we did was that we weren't allowed to speak during, not in a censorious way, but you had 5 minutes to make your point, and I had 5 minutes. And that's the biggest thing. When I find debating in a more casual sense, the number one problem is interruption.
Yeah.
You know, I'll be
I'm
sat across...
abundantly familiar with that.
Yeah, well, I'll be sat across someone, and they'll give me 3 or 4 reasons why they think I'm wrong, right? And then I go to argue the first one, and before I finished that, they're already coming back with 3 or 4 more reasons.
Yeah.
And it just, after a while, you go, this person doesn't know the rules.
Yeah.
And so
what basic etiquette.
But that was something. What we didn't do in our talk, though, was we didn't have a time where it was, what do they call it?
Cross-examination. Yeah.
There wasn't a 10-minute bit where we could freely discuss. I didn't want to do it because I thought we've got enough on our plate for the first one. Let's just get the basics down, keep it very civil.
And an emphasis on the Q&A.
And the emphasis on the Q&A because it was a group discussion. But maybe we'll do that in the future, and there's things to be done there. But yeah, here's to many more. Yeah. So we've got plans to do some more. I think though the problem will be is we agree on a lot. So I think what we'll have to do is get some people in to argue against us. Yeah. Maybe 2 versus 2. Yeah. But of course that adds to the production element of it.
Yeah, I think it would be nice as well, because I think, like you said, we're both very much on the same page with certain things, and I think sort of in an intellectual way, I think we bounce off each other quite nicely. I mean, like the conversation we just had, kind of follow up the same points. But no, here's to many more. I mean, it was absolutely brilliant. I couldn't, honestly, a brilliant night. And like I said, I was so refreshed by your angle on the topic, because it so often descends into just like, oh, you believe this, you believe this, you believe this, you believe this, instead of an actual like technical implementation argument. Yeah. Like I had to go home and go, how am I, like, if I'm asked this again, how am I going to refute this, or how am I going to, what do I say about this? And I think one of the things I do wish in that debate was I was a little bit more articulate, but I do think that couldn't have been helped because I didn't anticipate your angle.
Yeah. No, well, that's fair enough. But I tell you what, it was wonderful because I felt completely relaxed in trusting my opponent wasn't going to take me out of context or anything like that. It was quite a funny moment where I had to clarify that I wasn't accusing you of bigotry because I was pointing. I said, "Now I'm not doing a gotcha moment. I'm not saying that he's a bigot. I'm just pointing out this thing." But that's what was so wonderful about this in this conversation is I don't feel I have to be on guard. No. I have friends even where I feel I've got to just walk on eggshells a little bit around them. Because I think you can't take it for given nowadays that you can trust that your friends and family, I mean, I've got a wonderful family, but your friends and your family and your work colleagues aren't going to jump down your throats for just exploring an idea, not opposing, just exploring.
It's horrifying that when you're just putting the question forward, not even your beliefs, you're treated like a criminal. Like, what do you guys think about this? It's like, how dare you bring that up? It's like, you don't even know what I think. I might agree with you, but you're already jumping to the conclusion that because I've already brought this issue up. It reminds me a lot of what Keir Starmer said last year. He said, if you want an inquiry into these gangs and all that, well, you're just a far-right bigot. It's like, oh, hang on a second. Now you're doing them. What does that make you? And it's just like the minute the premise is built up, or the minute, oh, let's discuss this, let's talk about this, or this needs to be talked about, it's like, no, you can't talk about this. Yeah. It's a bit scary in a way, because we're moving away from that ability to be able to speak. And I think that's something that we in Britain can pride ourselves on so much, is our very rich history of being able to talk. I mean, you know, it's Speaker's Corner. That's a pretty British phenomenon. You don't really see that in
What
the
was that?
Americas. Speaker's Corner in
Right.
London.
Okay.
You don't really see that in America or anywhere else. It's sort of uniquely British, and we're moving away from that.
Yeah, I think it's finding its home on the internet. I think that
Yeah.
at the moment, YouTube and places like that are a place where you can have these conversations. It would be nice if they were more in person,
Yeah.
because I think there's a loneliness to being on the internet, staring at a screen, with friends that don't know you in return, and there can be an element of loneliness in that. So getting together and doing this sort of stuff.
That's what I enjoyed about the Oxford style and doing it in person here. There's a richness to it, and almost like a intimacy to it.
Yeah.
Like you're there with your opponent, you look at them in the eye when you're making these points. It gives a bit more flavour, if it makes sense. Because when I'm debating online, I'm usually looking at someone's profile picture. It's something like I'm staring at some guy who's arguing for like fascism or something, and he has like a Marvel picture. It's like, I like to. It's like right. It's like Captain America arguing for fascism. It's like okay, actual fascism, not the common misuse.
Sure.
Which I also had to clarify in the debate when I brought up appealing to the state. I had to actually clarify the point that I'm talking about actual fascism as Mussolini saw it.
Yeah.
And that goes on to the point of everyone just throws words at each other now, like it's absolute word salad. Yeah. Like BBC Question Times are worse for that.
Yeah. So hopefully people that are watching this interview have seen the debate. If not, it'll be a link in the description. This will come out after the debate's come out. So I guess the question is just to get on and do some more and explore other subjects. That way that they don't harden. They don't get stuck in place. Keep these conversations fluid. Of course, I'll bring it back to my argument, which is we've got to be careful how we do that going forward, because I wouldn't want our conversations to become sort of Punch and Judy shows or sort of what would you say, belittle the other side of the argument, I suppose. I kind of what I liked about ours was it was in many ways apolitical.
Yeah.
Our discussion, it was deeper than politics. It was about the undercurrents that are taking place and also the individual responsibility of how to be a Christian in the world. So if we can keep having conversations like that, man, I mean, I'll be so fulfilled personally.
Yeah.
And I also think that as we saw when we did it, there's a hunger for that sort of
people
stuff.
want these things, and I think even as my generation has got on in their years, they've definitely kind of stepped into that sort of like discussion, debate, conversation sort of scene where before they hadn't. Like on the community I run, you'll see these like 15-year-olds having debates, and it's like this 15-year-old knows more about this than I do. But that was unheard of when I was 15, or maybe just in my circle at least.
No, I agree that the internet is now a great library.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's been so fulfilling for me, and Amazon as well. The amount of secondhand books I've bought off Amazon, these things weren't available to previous generations.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess the question is, what's the next debate? I mean, I've got subjects I'm interested in. I'm trying to find the right words. I'd love to do one on masculinity, because that's something that's to be discussed. But I've not found the right words for it. Like, this church believes in masculinity. This church believes in toxic masculinity. This church should adopt masculine values. I can't find a question that would be fair to both sides. And then there are other ones. What subjects would you like to discuss?
Well, I'm very political and historical orientated. I'd love to debate the Crusades and what they were actually about.
Yeah.
Maybe some other aspects of church history, like the Inquisition maybe, or some of the wars, other wars they thought were involved in. But yeah, that's sort of my cup of tea. But the masculinity one's really interesting because I have a lot to say about that, especially like internet-wise.
Yeah.
Because that's very... It's a very, well, I say untouched. Louis Theroux recently done a documentary on it.
He's brought it it's kind of come back a little bit, that conversation.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting to get in it from a religious perspective. What does the Bible have to say on masculinity?
What is a man's duty, yeah.
Yeah, what's the church tradition on masculinity? What is the modern Anglican view of masculinity, the progressive view of it? That would be interesting to have that discussion and see what the public would think on that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, hopefully we'll do many more, and now we've got the formula down.
Yeah,
we can rinse and repeat essentially.
Yeah, the experiment was a success. We know what to do from onwards, don't we?
Well, here's to many more.
Here's to many more.